agenda. So I need to ask again. Okay.
I move we accept the agenda for tonight's meeting as published. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public comments. Public comments are an opportunity to present information or speak on an issue that is not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes for each person. Visitors may state their comments and should not expect the council to engage in back and forth dialogue regarding the comment. Council may either choose to add it to a follow-up meeting or direct the city manager to follow up with the speaker. I have 2 requests up here. One was Heather Sprague. Do you have?
I'll go next.
You'll go next, okay. And Beth Bell.
Beth Spell, John Day, and I have a couple questions that I want to have answers for. Not move down the agenda for 6 months. One thing I want to ask is, when did you change your format for selecting committee members? Always in the past, people have been invited to come and present themselves to the board, talk about their qualifications, and everybody got to see everyone who had applied. At the last, not the last meeting, but when you selected the budget committee, that opportunity was afforded to no one, and it was not announced who had indeed applied. I know that 3 other people for sure did apply besides the 5 that were selected. One of those was a licensed municipal accountant. I do not understand why you would not have considered that person, at least in discussion. That's one question. Why did you change it? Why didn't you consider everybody? And the other thing is, when are we gonna be ensured that everybody here and at home can see what's going on? By not having your screen on, we're really limited. I know there were people that wanted to comment during that same meeting on other topics that were not allowed to comment because they were online. So you need to look at those issues, address those, and please come back with some answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for all the hard work that you do, trying to sort things out that have been done before and to bring some things to our attention that were overlooked. Regarding the screen, I'd like to see that people use their real names when they're signing on. And that when they, sign on, that it's really that person that is going to speak. That's been a little bit, misused, I should say. So I just want to thank you for that. I also want to say how disgusted I am with the recall of our city council members.
Okay, we're not.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to every member of council for reading and study, are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion of the council. If separate discussion is desired, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request. Do I have any problem with the consent agenda?
I move we accept it. You're gonna say something?
I have a question. Accounts payable, it's all bill from Tyler Sheedy,
Right,
not aware of what that was for.
that was for the windows that were put in my building. It was part of that grant program.
The facade, Main Street
The
facade
Main Street facade.
reimbursement.
Anything else? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, Change Club. You have a presentation,
Right here.
you guys. Thanks for coming. Wherever you
Wherever.
want.
I'll stand it. I don't know what. I'm gonna read this off the paper because I can't anymore. Good evening. Thank you for the chance to speak with you tonight. My name is Larry DePew, and I'm here representing the Grant County Change Club, one of a number of groups in rural areas whose creation was spearheaded by Oregon Health Sciences University in 2022. Our club's purpose is twofold: to encourage healthy lifestyles, especially via regular walking, and to promote local civic engagement. Last December, I spoke before the council in regard to the Change Club's proposal to install flashing pedestrian safety signs near the corner of 7th and Bridge Streets. The council approved that proposal, and the signs are scheduled to be installed soon. And to add to that, they just got delivered to us today. So we have them in hand, and we're going to start coordinating with City Works and the newspaper and our group, getting everybody there at the same time to install. So you'll see them soon. Also, at that December council meeting, I mentioned that our club is eager to work with the city on other civic improvement projects, and that's why we're here this evening. Recently, we emailed our new project proposal to the city manager and every member of the council, and you now also have a paper copy of it. But if I may, for the benefit of the members of the public attending tonight's meeting, I'd like to summarize our proposal verbally as well. During the urban unrest in the summer of 2020, protesters in downtown Portland pulled down or damaged statues in a number of the city's public parks. Among them was a bronze sculpture titled "The Promised Land," which depicts a pioneer family, the kind of which traversed the Oregon Trail in the mid-1800s. The sculpture, which had graced Chapman Square near City Hall since 1993, was splashed with red paint and defaced with graffiti. Shortly afterward, the city of Portland removed the sculpture from the park and placed it, along with other works of public art targeted by the protesters, into storage, where they remain today. A years-long public conversation about what comes next for the statues has failed to settle their fate. One option championed by some Portlanders is to return the statues to their original locations or to other public spaces in Portland. This, however, has not come to pass, and as time goes by, appears less and less likely to happen. Given this, the John Day Change Club petitions the city of John Day to contact the city of Portland, offer to take ownership of the Promised Land sculpture, and offer to pay the cost of its transportation to Grant County. Once it were here, we propose the sculpture, which measures 10.5 feet tall with a 5 foot by 5 foot footprint, be installed on the ground of the pit stop, where we believe it would be a beautiful addition to downtown John Day and a real upgrade to a plot of land, which at least so far is a flat and featureless expanse of paver stone. The sculpture would dovetail perfectly with John Day's Western frontier heritage, and we believe become a source of immense civic pride for our city, revered by its residents as a noble and true representation of the history of the American West and the hardy pioneers who helped build it. It is possible the city of Portland would let John Day assume ownership of the sculpture gratis. If Portland wanted remuneration, however, funding from private sources could likely be obtained to buy and transport it. If the city council would like to pursue this, members of the Change Club would be happy to help draft a written proposal to the city of Portland and help with this project in any way we could. In conclusion, if attendees at tonight's meeting would like a copy of the proposal and a photograph of the sculpture, I've left a few on the table by the entrance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I actually have a here, you guys.
Yeah,
I think you guys are.
yeah.
And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Larry?
Yeah.
What's that way?
Rick? Is it? I think we talked about the weight of it one time, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure what the
Yeah,
statute weight is.
it's kind of.
Yeah.
That's what it does, so. It's a-
Bronze.
We have to be, putting and fixing the ground somehow.
Yeah, we would have to explore all that. I would think very possibly, we probably couldn't just sit it on the papers. So that,
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
You need to direct your questions to the chair. I know. Sounds silly, but you have to do it that way. So, I would first, I know you guys probably have questions and we'll get to those. I would first like the discussion from the council on this, and then we can move forward to, other comments. Anyone? Anyone?
Looks like a good thing to me. I like the statute.
Two.
The only thing is, we can't afford to put money in.
It's not great timing right now.
Can I address the council?
Yeah.
Any costs that, we've talked about this, any costs that wouldn't be incurred transporting this or possibly building a foundation for it or whatever, we would take that on as a project and fundraise, ask for donations, possibly search out a grant. But
That would be-
we're not gonna ask the city to put out any money for this.
That would be awesome. I like that. My only concern is that it does look like it's gonna take up a pretty big footprint at the pit stop. And I would wonder if there was the possibility of looking into putting it next to the welcome sign at the gateway.
That was brought up, my personal opinion, I mean, everybody's gonna have an opinion on this, is that it's gonna be kind of far off the highway at that
Right,
point, and
yeah.
kind of not that noticeable.
Yeah,
That was my thoughts on it anyway. I mean, other than that, it'd be a cool location.
mhm,
No,
Is-
sure. Just in the interest of, not putting the cart before the horse, if you are interested, I can certainly reach out to Portland, but at the time they say, okay, then we have to make arrangements. You can certainly have a workshop on where the best place to put it is and have those
would
discussions.
that
Right.
be okay with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing tonight is the very first step.
Okay,
And then we know there's a lot of hoops to jump through to get this thing going.
I will say this also, artists are very proprietary. If there was an artist and they're still around on this piece, they will probably want, if that is the case and it is agreeable, and they will probably be very hands-on, just knowing the demeanor, and will want it done in a certain way with a certain base, with a certain type of thing. And so, that could come into play also.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
great.
Um,
I have one question. The damage done to it through the graffiti and all that, that's all easily fixed, or I mean.
Yeah, I mean, so what we know about it is it was splattered with red paint and there's some sort of graffiti on it, but all that can be cleaned up and removed. As far as them taking sledgehammers to it or something, that never happened. So I think, whatever damage was done can be taken care of, just from what we know as of yet.
Well, I really appreciate your vision. I think it's a phenomenal idea, and I look forward to, Melissa reaching out to Portland with your assistance and seeing what we can do.
Right.
We'll go from there.
Okay.
I'm sure you get a lot of support in this community for something like that. That would be a real coup for us. I mean, that you don't just art is something that's really important, but it's really not something, I mean, to pay for something like that to be done. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
$100,000 or higher. So if Portland would be willing to give it to us as a caretaker for it, what a great piece to be able to put right there in our downtown. I believe people should be able to walk up close to it and see it.
Yeah.
So, and that's just kind of my, but I know we'll have, we can, like Melissa said, we can cross our.
Yeah, I think, John Day doesn't really have anything like that, so I think it'd be.
Yeah, I would do it.
And this certainly wasn't my idea, it's kind of a culmination of our group, awesome ideas. So,
Doing a great job representing.
great, thank you. Thank the change club. All right, thanks.
No, no. Are there any questions from the audience? All your questions have been answered. Oh, yeah, Beth.
I'm just curious. Since it was a point of controversy in Portland. What kind of security measures do you need to consider?
I don't think it was so much a point of controversy as it was just,
Control right.
yeah, it's during the riots and they decimated everything. I mean, I don't think that they're gonna come here and attack the statue.
Let me say something, Sherry.
Yes,
I think if you look at Portland and you look at John Day, without me getting, points of view are very different. These two, and the two regions of the state. And just personally, I don't see anything like that happening here.
right.
If it does, I'm gonna.
So, there are other cities out here in central, Prineville has a beautiful they're all putting up statues and they're all fine. I think it was just a sign of the times. Yes, ma'am.
Well, then for an example, the longhorn bull that's.
Yeah.
It is.
Nobody has touched that.
No.
And it's really slow down.
Yeah. Okay, well, do we need a consensus?
I think I'm getting from you a consensus to reach out and.
Yeah. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your effort. Okay. Moving on. We have the purple pipe recommendation from the council subcommittee.
Yeah, so, Counselor, I, at the last meeting on May 14th, asked this body to, put together a subcommittee to, discuss the Purple Pipe project. Staff had been, in long discussions and couldn't come up with a good, way to proceed or a good answer that I felt comfortable with staff making the decision. And so, Counselor Holland, Counselor Bush, and Counselor Phillips was on there. We all did get together with Nick Ducote and Doug Argo from HECO, I believe, and I believe they're both on here also on. And I will ask them to unmute so they can unmute. We did get together on a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And we had discussions on the project. In your packet is the result of what the committee discussed and kind of came up with as far as a recommendation. And so basically that recommendation is in front of council to make an ultimate decision. And so if you read your package, you have that recommendation in there. And if you have any questions, Doug Argo is on the line and Nick also.
Does anybody have any questions?
And it doesn't matter. It's a tough decision for the council. It's unfortunate. The timing of the purple pipe versus the treatment plant is so far out of whack right now that it's causing us issues. Issue being that we can't get an agreement with an end user because our treatment plant's gonna be producing Class B water. And our original end user that was gonna be able to use the majority of the water and at least pay us something for it, isn't willing to use Class B water until their environmental people can test it to see if it will be harmful to their logs and their stuff down there they were gonna use it on. Well, we can't produce a sample for them to test because we don't have a treatment plant up and running to produce it. So that puts us in a dilemma. It's not the city's fault that it happened this way. The federal government and the environmental agencies have put us behind 2 to 3, 4 years, whatever it is. So we're in a situation now that there's not enough money for every aspect of the purple pipe, which includes at least a 500,000 gallon reservoir. So we had to take that piece out of the equation as one option and put it with the treatment plant portion of the build. Well, the cost for the reservoir to operate the purple pipe system goes $1 million plus. Don't know exact because we don't have bids and all that stuff, but it's $1 million plus. Bringing the treatment plant up to Class A, which USDA Rural will not pay for. They won't loan on it and they won't grant money on it because it's not required by DEQ. They'll only go Class B. So the funding agency, our major funding agency, is not willing to buy into that, going to Class A. So then we have to find an additional funding agency to, if we can find one, bring the plant up to a Class A, then Malheur could potentially take the water without any other issues. The timeline's wrong for that. That also would be $1 million plus in additional costs. We don't know that there's grant money available for either one of those aspects, so we're assuming loan. The engineer and their project consultant calculated the payback on a 30-year loan for those two added components as being, if we got money back from Malheur, it would be about $125,000 a year in debt service on just those two portions. That does not include the main cost of the treatment plant. If we got no money from Malheur, of course, that payback increased significantly. So we discussed this for an hour and a half, at least. Oregon Water Resource Department will not release any more the grant money without an agreement with an end user. At this point, we have no agreement with an end user. So they won't release any money to build the project anyway without that. The grant is already on an extension. That extension ends at the end of this year. They're under the wire. It would have to be built by the end of this year to meet the grant requirements. Without an end user, they're not gonna give us any more money out of that grant. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place there again. The treatment plant should have been built and up and operational by now. And then the purple pipe system would have been being built. That's the way it was planned, that's the way it was laid out, that's how it was all scheduled. We did not anticipate a complaint being filed with Noah Fisheries. Noah Fisheries came in and doing their due diligence because of the complaint. They had no choice, they had to do what they had to do. It is what it is, that's where we're at. We can't justify at this time costing the residents of John Day, not knowing what they're gonna have to pay for the treatment plant currently. We're hoping we can get some additional grant money for that, reduce those costs, but not knowing what that cost is gonna be, we just can't justify at this time adding an additional $125,000+ a year in debt payment that the citizens of John Day are gonna be responsible for paying through sewer rates and Canyon City also. So at this point, financially, unfortunately, the recommendation of the committee is to stop the Purple Pipe project completely. More than likely, we will have to pay back the expended grant funds that we've incurred to this point. The estimate given to us in that meeting was 270 to 280,000, somewhere in that range. It's one of those cut your losses. We pay 125 to 100 and whatever thousand for the next 30 years. Or we pay 270 to 280,000 once right now. We can revisit it down the road if it looks feasible. The chances of getting a grant like this again are probably nil to none, but you never know. So the subcommittee's recommendation to council is to cut our losses, abandon the Purple Pipe project due to circumstances beyond our control and to the financial benefit of our residents. Figure out how we're gonna pay back the grant. We're gonna have to redo the budget, obviously, from what was presented last week. But in the long term, I think financially, that's our best option at this point.
Yeah, and if council agrees with the subcommittee, Nick, Dakota and I will work with the funders and we'll try to see if they'll let us just forgive the portion that we already spent on the project. I mean, we'll try that first, obviously, and say, hey, we did put some infrastructure in, we did work on this project. So there is that. So stay tuned for that if that's what the council's deciding.
And we do have, I mean, the 270,000 isn't just a throwaway. We do have the engineer design and all that stuff that can be used in the future if we get the opportunity to continue with this project somewhere down the road. Then a big portion of that cost has already been taken care of, and those designs and plans will still be viable. So we do have that if we get an opportunity in the future, but I can't personally, and sitting in that meeting, and that was my statement, was personally, I can't. It's not fiscally, financially responsible to put that burden on the taxpayers. And especially since we don't have everything in line. We don't have Class A, we don't have end user results or agreements. We don't have all the necessary things to help recoup some of those costs. So being financially responsible, I think the council needs to just abandon the project. Unfortunately.
I can't add anything to what David has already said. I mean, that was a really good, that was pretty complete. And we were in there for quite a while. Ron and I and David and Casey and Melissa. And I will say that, it was a really good meeting. I mean, I really felt like we all worked well together to understand, the business case or lack thereof, what the options were, what the costs were for the various options. And I think, the contractors, Nick and Doug helped us, really kind of cage the issues for a good apples to apples comparison. And financially, it's kind of, at this point, given the situation we're in, just like Dave said, it's kind of a no-brainer. And we all agree that this is the best course of action. It preserves our ability to revisit the project later on. It's not just like David said, and I appreciate you bringing that up, the last part there. It was, it's not a threat. It's not a loss per se. It's just not gonna happen when and how we thought it was gonna happen, because sometimes things happen, there's risks and circumstances change and you gotta adjust. And that's what we're doing here. We're doing it in the best interest of the people here in this community, and ultimately what you're gonna pay for a long, long time.
Anybody else? Yeah, Judy had her hand up. You want me to go? You can just stand up.
I'm not contesting where we are with this, and I'm not contesting what Dave said. There's a couple of things that I think you should be aware of, that tie into why we don't have an end user. I talked to several people. First, I would like to ask the subcommittee people that met, was Mount Here Lumber involved in that meeting?
Malheur Lumber has been spoken to.
No, Sherry, I just need a yes or no. because then
We're not answering, we don't have to.
Well, it has something to do with what I have here, some documentation.
That's fine, but we don't have.
I mean,
to.
you should be able to tell me who was in the meeting.
I did,
We did.
made it very clear. It
So
was,
now here was not. Okay. On April 23rd, this subject came up, the purple pipe again. And you discussed it at some length. You can go back and look at the tape of it, the video of it. And what happened in that meeting, there was a consensus, and it was a very clear consensus from you counselors to Melissa that she and Dave Holland and an engineer from, I believe it was HECO, meet with Mount Here Lumber soon, because, we all talked about what you all talked about. Everybody was in agreement that there was a timeline to be dealt with this. So that was April 23rd. And then at the next time this was brought up, at the next meeting, the question came about, now here taking up, they said, we'll pass it this time. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. And that just seemed a little vague to me after I won't say it was a directive, but it was a consensus. The expectation was that Dave, Melissa, and an engineer from HECO would meet with Malheur ASAP and get started on answering some of these questions. I have a copy of the email between Melissa and Rich Fulton. And his four main questions were all things that were discussed at council that night among you, mostly from Dave, that questions that needed to be answered, that Malheur needed the answers to. So I guess, we don't have an end user. And I think that, I don't know why that meeting didn't happen with Malheur. And I talked to him at length about this. Every one of these questions was discussed in open council and could have been taken to Malheur. And it looked to me like on Tuesday, May 14th was the last say of, you know, it's gonna take too much time, we're gonna have to pass. But I'd like to have some idea about why that original plan didn't happen right then and there. To start getting answers for Malheur Lumber, so that there might have been a possibility, slim, maybe. But sure would have been a heck of a lot better to have them on board than off board, abandoning this project and having to give all that money back. So that's what I wanted to say tonight. I don't know why that meeting didn't happen, and if it didn't happen, I hope there was a darn good reason.
Well, sorry, there's.
Jim,
Yeah, Jim Spelling, I just have a question about information. Previously, for several months, you could look on the council meeting day, see the agenda and see the packet, the material provided to council. That's not been happening. So this was a group that met. Dave explained all the ins and outs of it. I think I understand the reason, but why doesn't the public get to see the report generated from that group?
you couldn't open the packet?
I don't think it was in the packet.
Yes, it was.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was-
Yeah, it was there.
A week in
So-
advance.
Purple Pipe Project.
So,
And the results of the committee,
Yes,
Okay.
it's all there.
I apologize, I guess, overlooked it.
so just to reemphasize something that Dave said. When we looked at the different options, we looked at the business case, we looked at it from the assumption that Malheur would be an end user. And it's still a net loss, even with Malheur being an end user. At the rates that were estimated for the original project. It was still gonna cost us $125,000 a year for 30 years to pay off the debt it would cost to create, and that's a big if. And so, I just want to make that clear. This wasn't because we didn't have an end user. We would have to have an end user to get any more money, but that requires a contract in place. Even if we said, okay, we're gonna be at, Malheur said today or yesterday, last month, we're gonna be an end user, they have to go through a whole DEQ process that lasts months and months and months. So it's not as simple, and then the contract has to be written, but yet we don't know because we don't have the water for them to test. So with the projects getting desynced like they did, there's just no way we could have gotten from here with an end user. Even if we did, it still wasn't gonna make a business case based on the assumptions that have been made all along.
I just have one response to that and then I'm done. I think it's important, sure. I wouldn't be saying it. All I know is that what the expectation was at the April 23rd meeting, and when Mr. Fulton was asked, this was presented to him, asked him specifically, were you told that Dave Holland and a HECO engineer would be meeting with you and Melissa? And he said it was never mentioned.
And Judy, just for a correction on that, it wasn't HECO, it was DEQ.
DEQ.
Yeah, we wanted a member of
I think
DEQ.
to him, I just said an engineer.
Yeah, well, we wanted a member of DEQ to meet so that he could discuss the water quality with Rich. One other thing I'd just like to mention that I forgot to in my original spiel, and it's important. And the reason it's important is because it greatly limits what we can do with that water, from Class A to Class B. Class A, we could have used it pretty much anywhere. I'm not even so sure you couldn't have used it for a lake to swim in. Pretty much one of the only restrictions on the Class A water would have been not for human consumption. Okay, so that's the difference between Class A. Class B, we're greatly limited on how water can be used and where it can be used. It makes no sense in their rules, and I'll say that right up front. You can't use it on a city park, you can't use it on a playground, you couldn't have used it over at Parks and Recs to water the ball fields or their lawns or anything, because the public has access to that. You can't use it for watering public landscaping that the public has access to. You can't use it for almost anything, but you can use it to water a golf course that the public frequents on a daily basis. So, and that's why I say it makes no sense. Their rules, but it's their rules and we have to follow them and we have to live with them. Potentially, we could have talked with the golf course. My understanding is the golf course really wouldn't have potentially been able to really afford to buy it, or if they were able to afford a small amount, it wouldn't have been much. They're limited to a 4 to 5 month, maybe 6 month period of use. And it would still cost us the additional $1 million+ to build the tank outside of what the grant would pay for. And potentially not get any money back from the golf course for their use. Plus, there's private property that we would have had to also negotiate an easement to get through to even get to the golf course. Financially, it just doesn't pencil out. It's that additional cost that makes it not feasible at this time. It's the additional cost for the reservoir, it's the additional cost for the Class A plant above and beyond what any grant would pay for at this time that we have. So I just wanted to bring those up and make the public aware of that also.
Thank you, Dave.
I was just remembering that we already have purple pipe in the ground someplace, a lot of it. And it seems to me that that was a mistake of putting the cart before the horse. And here we are dealing with all of this now. So, I mean, how many feet of purple pipe is out there? 600, 900?
900.
And it would accommodate what kind of water? You know, is it A or B or C? You know, and that all plays into whether Malheur or the golf course or who could use the water. So anyhow, it just seems like it was a waste.
Well, clarification, the purple pipe that was put in goes the opposite way. And so, and I did call DEQ and get them to somewhat agree that Class B water could go through that pipe. I mean, so that was one of the first things I did, because contrary, I was trying to save this project and we were trying to do everything we could. I did contact Malheur Lumber and Rich, and I did talk to him. And when I said we needed to set up a meeting, it was him that was kind of like, this isn't going to happen in the time frame. When I told him we have to get this done, he's the one, Rich is the one who said this will not happen in the time frame. It's not going to happen, Melissa. And I then said, you need to put that in writing, because they're not going to believe me when I go back. So he did, and that's the email that, Judy, that you have. And so I don't think that anybody's trying to not make this happen. I think it's just the perfect storm right now. And so we need to move forward. And again, I don't think Malheur's off the table in the future. It's just right now we have a sewer plant that needs to be done, and a project that we need to make a decision on.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to council once more and ask for a motion of something. Since you.
Since I
since you-
won, I think I did my job.
Yeah. I'll be the dirty one, Dave.
Well, just before you start your motion, make sure you put something in there about Melissa working with our contractors and the loaning institution
Right.
for potential forgiveness, because we do have the plans and all that stuff, which would cost us down the road anyway, so it's not just throwing away money.
So, I'll move that we terminate the Purple Pipe project. And incur no further costs, for the project at this time. In lieu of, our loan or our grant obligations, further direct the city manager to work with our contractors to work with the DEQ,
Oregon Department of Water
Yeah, that one.
Oregon Department of Water Resources, to mitigate the cost of terminating the project at this point.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
As much as I hate to,
I know,
Yeah,
I know. It's tragic. It really is.
we hate it with the fashion.
Yeah.
No choice.
Okay.
So, you want me to jump in?
Yes, please.
So, the next item, Council President, is, mayor appointment discussion. A counselor asked me to put this on the agenda, but it was good timing because I did just get, I've kind of alluded to this. I've had coffee time and talked about the idea of this advisory vote. And, we did finally get confirmation from the county that we can't do an advisory vote. It was always kind of my suspicion because of the paperwork you have to file that keeps you in line with state elections. But we're not gonna be able to do an advisory vote. So that is my piece I'm saying to you, and then you can discuss how you want to proceed as a council.
and I guess I'm confused as to why we can't do it.
Because the paperwork a city has to file is in the format of yes or no, referendum or a question. It can't, and you only have so many words you can use, so it's not, the state and elections is not set up to just allow any kind of vote. In other words, you can't just have a list of people and pick one. It has to be a yes or no question if the city is putting it on there in the format, in the paperwork, and the state forms you have to use. And so we can't do an advisory vote with the list. You can have two people on there, or yes or no, or do you want this person, yes or no? But that's the way it is, so.
Cause you only have up to two.
You would only be, well, it's actually, yes, if it's coming from the city, so in other words, if we are providing the paperwork and putting the election on there, it would have to be like a yes or no vote.
Right,
So do you want this person, yes or no?
exactly.
Yeah, that's what it would be.
Well, that's what we figured it would be.
Well, no, you were wanting an advisory vote where you have a list of people who are an option and have somebody pick like you do for your
Just like
elections
you
where it
do.
has.
Just like you do for a normal council position.
Except it's not, and it's called an advisory vote. It's a finite, we can't put a real election on as a fake election. So you can't do an election that's not an election. So in other words, if we're gonna put an advisory or some kind of question, it has to be done in the right format, in the right paperwork, and you don't have an option for a election format, I guess is the way to put it. If that makes sense.
It's the state. No, it doesn't make sense.
I'm trying to explain it, and it's probably not being explained very well, but
And you got this information
from the county.
from the county.
Yeah.
So anybody has a question about that, I guess they can
Yeah.
go to the
And I
county.
do believe that Counselor Labhart has already verified that, because I was told when I called that she said he had already been in and got that information too, so.
I mean, so we need a mayor. mean, and I think, I'm just trying to cage this for discussion. We need a mayor and it's the council's responsibility to appoint. So those are the two things that are certain, I think.
Regardless of whether you go out for advisory question or not, you still have to open up application, you still have to get a list of people to choose from.
I'm
And
not
we
sure.
haven't, and we haven't opened applications up.
In fairness, I don't think that's a requirement. I think you could select somebody from council as an option. Or you could open it up to applications, is that correct?
Yes,
I just want to make sure everybody understands.
it's an appointment.
So, one of the things that struck me when we first had this discussion was, our newspaper record. The addition immediately followed the meeting when, Sherry, Council President Sherry was she was brand new. And she made the suggestion or suggested that we do this advisory, but we'll go this particular route. And there was a lot of discussion. And the editorial specifically said they felt that that was a really good olive branch to what's perceived as a minority on the council, if you will. And so I mean, that made me, I think I don't want to speak for anybody else, but when I walked out of that council meeting that night, I felt pretty good. I felt like we kind of came together with kind of idea and a consensus and, you know, maybe we would be able to work together on things as we move forward. And I still think that. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure I think that olive branch was offered in good faith. And I'm wondering if, you know, the good faith is gonna, if it's being abused, let's just say. And that's one of the things I've kind of been watching for is how does this mature? How does this teamwork develop? And honestly, I wasn't real optimistic because of some of the things that I've seen. But I will tell you, the example of the three of us working together on this subcommittee and coming up with a very difficult decision that's in the best interest of the city, that all three of us clearly fought for ourselves on, made our own conclusions outside of, you know, maybe some of the other more the adverts that go on sometimes in the public's eye. It gave me hope. I felt really good walking out of that subcommittee meeting. So it's kind of like back and forth for me, right? I mean, people in the majority might want one way and people in the minority might want something more broad. I personally believe that, you know, community input is good, but we got to move forward. We got to get the ball. So I mean, I'm willing to discuss, I'm willing to compromise. I mean, if it was me, I like to make fast decisions and move on forward if it makes sense, right? And not dilly-dally. But I think this is important, and I also think community input is really good. So I'd like to try to come up with a mechanism that we can move forward with community input, but do it in a timely fashion. So we can get the council, get the business of the city, continuing to move forward, get a full council seated and stop, you know, kind of in our minds questioning the future. I want to see the stability that I saw in that subcommittee meeting in the future. And because none of us are going to be here forever, right? We want good people that want to be on the city council. And good people aren't going to want to be on the city council if they feel like, you know, it's, you know, cloak and daggers on, if you will. I mean, I'm just on both sides. I'm not blaming anybody. I want good people to be on city council. I'm not perfect either, right? I get frustrated. But I think we need to move the city forward. We do it in a timely fashion. I'd like to do it in a way where we can get some reasonable community input. And if that means a window of applications, fine. Part of me says, let's just get on with it. The other part says, hey, what can we do for some community input here? But we gotta keep the window, we gotta kind of shorten our timeline on this, because I think this is important that we have solid, consistent leadership, council we can count on moving forward, and then demonstrate that we can all work together. So all you out here can say, hey, hey, I might want to do that these days. If there's a vacancy, or if I'm gonna run for election, I'm passionate about a particular project, I'd like to sit on the council for a season. Right now, I mean, I can't tell you how many people said, when I applied to be on the council when we had 2 vacancies, how many people told me, are you kidding? What are you doing? And I'm just telling you the truth. Are you crazy? And I said, somebody's got to do it. And, we've got a lot of hardworking people here. A lot of people want to do the right thing for the city. Remember the one thing, David voted for me when I was appointed. I don't know, he might maybe regress it now. But one of the things that David told me afterwards, I actually went up and I told David after the meeting, I'll share this with David, sorry. And I told David how much I appreciated him voting for me and how much it meant to me. And his response was, I just want you to do the right thing for the city. And I'm doing the best I can based on my experience, my judgment, if you will, and my core values, quite frankly, which I will not compromise. That I'm trying to do the right thing for the city. And I saw the right thing done for the city in this subcommittee meeting, and it really made me feel good inside, because it made me feel like, wow, I can, people who see us working together like this are going to want to be part of the team. They don't want to see the divisiveness, and they don't want to see the criticism. And again, none of us are perfect. I have a different experience, or I've been in decades of city council meetings. I've never seen anybody interview for a committee appointment ever. It's always been consent agenda. Always. So granted, maybe there's more of an opportunity to do that here. I don't know, but that's just my experience. We've got to get down, we got to make serious, tough decisions like David talked about tonight, where it's not going to make everybody happy, but it's in the best interest of the community to do it. And I think we came together and did it. And I'd like to see us move forward in the same way on this particular issue.
Okay, so just a slight correction.
Yes, sir.
Sherry did offer an olive branch that night. Chris Lappard commended her on it, but her olive branch wasn't the vote thing. It was, since city council, 3 of us were up for election. 2 of the appointed people, she said that she would like to wait until the November election, after the November election, and let the new council appoint the mayor. That was actually what she had said that night.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly.
And
It is.
and I still don't disagree with that.
Right.
I mean, right now, we're sitting with Chris. So we got 3 against, we're 3-3, not 3 against, 3-3.
3 appointed, 3 elected.
Appointed versus elected.
Right.
Come the November election, my position's open, Chris Lappard and Ed Newby. All 3 of those positions are up for the November election. So, I mean, we seem to be managing right now. I don't want to hear any whining. You took on the job, so deal with it. You guys took it away from me. I would have done it, but you didn't want me there, so you're the one there now, so I think that's still a good idea. That way, the majority will be elected, not appointed, instead of vice versa. My opinion. If we can't do the advisory vote, that's fine. I still think we need to put it out for application. I think if somebody on the council wants that position, they can throw their application in and that can be considered right along with the rest of them. This is how I feel about it. You have to say how you felt about it. I would like to see the council be able to work together. I haven't liked this feeling of you against us or us against you for the last almost 2 years. And that's the feeling I've had.
Right.
I'm tired of that feeling. I would like to see it just all go away. I would like to see good people on the council that care about the community, don't have a personal agenda. And I think the mayor's position is important. It's a leadership position. And I think we need to take really strong consideration in that position. So I think that opening it up to the public, seeing who out there is interested in serving in that capacity is important. And like I said, if a current counselor would like to assume that position for the next 2 years, then they're welcome to throw their name in the hat. It doesn't mean they can't. But it's a 2-year position still. It's an additional 2 years before that position comes back up for election. And so we need to be thoughtful and considerate on who takes that position.
The comment I got is, I'm concerned, really concerned about our lenders. And we need to pull this council together. Because I'm afraid our lenders might get nervous. And right now is a point in time that we need our lenders to get this sewer plant built. And just a little concerned there. I think everybody needs to take that into consideration.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, Jim Spell again. I'm not sure what's going here. I'm not sure what options council is looking at now to fill that position. Well, but what I encourage is, I don't know who out there on the street wants to be the mayor, but the public needs to have some input through an election process and not an appointment here where 3 of you were appointed to begin with, a couple of elections coming up, but the public needs to have an opportunity to state their wishes on that.
Yeah.
Maybe some type of poll, since the ballot thing doesn't look like it's feasible, but some way of getting public input, I think, is very important to seeing that the council can move forward in an efficient manner. People continue to feel cut out of the decision process. I think that impedes your ability to do your job.
It'd be real easy to, if we open applications, to get the names of the applicants, put them on a list with a box next to their name, check one, send it out with the water bill mailers. I mean, that would be relatively inexpensive and simple to do. That gives the public input.
Brad.
I mean, it's
Sure,
just,
how you gonna do a water bill when it comes in a card?
Yeah, it'd be a separate file. We'd have to do a separate mailing, but.
There have been
And there's-
mailers come out
Yeah.
water bills.
I mean, that's a way, but probably not everybody gets water. Homeowners get water bill, a lot of renters get water bills, but not all of them. And so, and then there's people who get water, more than one water bill. So I'm just throwing that out there for discussion. It's interesting. I think all these things need to be kind of put on the table. But there's pros and cons to when you start getting into the weeds.
Shannon,
Shannon.
sorry, I can't see you back.
The water bill too is, I do agree that I think it's important for public input, but with the water bill, your businesses get water bills too, and so it will be hard to,
Yeah,
determine who's a resident.
Judy, and then let's wrap this up.
I have a copy of the article, Judy John Day, I don't think I said that before. After the, February 13th meeting, and it seemed to be a real strong consensus that night, which was great. I agree 100%. We were pleasantly surprised and happy that the consensus was reached for the advisory vote, and then to let the election take place in November and let that council choose the mayor. So we know that we can't do the advisory vote, I guess, but I don't know why you would abandon the second part of that. Just go ahead and let the new council, whoever that may be in November, choose the new mayor.
That's fine. That's why we're
Is that
discussing
where you're
this.
heading?
Yeah, I think that's why we're having this
I
discussion.
thought maybe you were gonna move it forward ahead of that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, and I don't want to confuse the issue here a little bit. That was the discussion.
Yeah, that's what you decided, but that's your consensus.
That was the consensus, yes. But that that proposal was made in good faith. I want to be assured moving forward that we can have good faith amongst this council. I don't want to feel like, okay, well, if I'm in the majority on a particular subject, I don't agree with everything everybody in this council says from time to time. I think one of the things I said when I was appointed was, one day you're gonna like what I say, and the next day you won't. So I just try to, again, we have to just really focus on good faith, working together. And if we can, fine. But if my concern is, I just want to make sure that we can get past this, the cloak and dagger stuff on both sides. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I want to make that real clear on both sides. I'm not interested in it. I'm not a politician. Never planned on being one and never want to be one. Except here I am. So, but I do like to lead. I do like to manage, and I'm kind of a policy. That's why I'm here, because I felt like I could contribute. So anyway,
So is this a conversation that we want to continue at a later date? Is this a conversation that we want to make a decision on tonight? Can we just stick with what we had decided before, and we'll figure out a way to get citizen input?
my inclination, like I said earlier, is to get on with it, right? And get it done. But I know I'm trying to be sensitive to folks that don't see it the same way I do. And so I want to give it some time. I want to see how things develop over the next month or two and kind of see how things are going. If things run smooth, I'm perfectly comfortable with waiting. But if there's a bunch of chaos, then the council's obligated to fill the seats and get the leadership in place to straighten the ship, and I'm willing to get on with it too. So I'm not going to be caged into I'm doing this no matter what. But I'm willing to negotiate. I'm willing to listen and hear your.
Okay, one more comment. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brian from Dam, Kansas City. I just had a thought for another public and engagement with this is, what if you put an obligation or not obligation, but this offer to people who want to apply to go door to door and get endorsements from citizens, or go to the Chesters and just get every signature they can get for people who support them. And then when they turn in an application, then they turn in endorsements with that. Then and it's looking at the application, oh, this person is liked by 35 people, this person is liked by 95 people, but that's also a way to get the people involved out in the public so people can meet them. So that when they come for you for the council meeting, they come prepared with the experiences meeting the people and can talk about how they have supported the people they're wanting to represent. Just
Good suggestion.
Appreciate it.
Well, according to the charter, you either pay $50 or 25 signatures.
That's for the
That's
election,
for
to get on the ballot.
For election.
Yeah. You guys can set up however you want. I would be remiss and, he would probably mention it to me on my call if the attorney's opinion is, his feeling is this council needs to appoint a mayor. I have no skin in the game, so, I mean, you obviously have been living without one, so, I'm just putting his opinion out there so that I can say I did. Damn.
And did he, can you elaborate on?
Did he
on-
give a
on the-
timeline?
Well,
No, I mean, he thought it should have been done months ago. His opinion is that the council needs a mayor, the city needs a mayor. You're in the charter, you are obligated to appoint a mayor. He thinks you need to appoint a mayor and have a council now. That said, that's his opinion and he's an attorney, so he's looking at liability issues and legal issues and things that so far haven't surfaced. So, I just want to do my job, due diligence, put it out there.
Okay. Can we all take some time to digest this? I mean, we got hit with it down tonight. Really haven't had a chance to think about. Give it some thought and we'll massage it a little bit and come back and just visit some more.
I think at very least, we still need to open it up to applications. I mean, at very minimum. If the council turns around and appoints the mayor in a month from now, you know, I still think we, at bare minimum, need to open it up to application. And like I said, anyone on council that wants to be part of that application process is welcome to put in.
So do you still want that? Okay, so our lawyer's telling us we need to appoint. We're saying we'd like to wait until after the election.
And that's fine with me,
Yeah.
that part of it.
Yeah, so do we want to start accepting applications now, or do we want to do it closer to the election?
Here,
Well, if we're not gonna be able to do the advisory vote, because that would have to be submitted by the middle of August, then there wouldn't be a panic for applications. But if you, under Jeremy's recommendation, don't wanna wait till November, I'm not necessarily okay with it, but I'm not the only person in this chambers right now.
No, and,
But I still think at minimum, we need to open it up to applications to the public.
okay. Okay,
so, kind of trying to capture that, maybe we could get consensus to have Melissa move forward with a draft timeline that would be consistent with the attorney's recommendation to bring back to us to discuss. Not committing us to anything. But something that's in, you know, it's consistent with the attorney, with legal recommendations.
He's gonna say yesterday.
Well, but I mean, but I'm trying to give everybody the thing they want or need.
Oh,
Right, and so the application process is gonna take time. And so we would, you know, and that would be included in this, right? So a timeline, when I say timeline, I mean a timeline for, well, you know, take Dave's have to, the applications, and frankly, I think that's a good idea too, I support that. And do it in a time frame that is reasonable for city staff. And target a council meeting down the road, and then bring it back to us for discussion. Not setting the date, but discussion, so we can revisit it one more time and discuss it some more. What do you think?
I think.
Am I trying too hard to split the baby?
Yeah, I think if you're gonna accept applications, we can certainly publish that, get it out there, get it on the website. I think all you need to do is decide at what point do you want the cutoff and when do you want it to decide. To the point made earlier, and I was gonna talk about this under my update, but I'll say it now. Council appointments, very much so. You can interview candidates and ask them questions. My advice would be to have your questions in to staff so we can get them kind of, figured out and worded, so you don't ask the same question 50 times. Also, you don't get the city in a liability issue of attacking someone's character. But very much so, you would interview and have people stand up, or you can bring them to a table and ask them questions. Not a problem, because it's an elected position. They're now in a different realm. Volunteers doing service, there's no qualifications required, and your application already sets those out, and they already fill in all the information that supposedly you should have to make a decision. So having them stand up and say something that's already on their application, or to ask them something that's not on the application, regardless of their abilities that already is laid out, can get you into a character issue, because there's really no reason to say no to someone at that point to volunteer their time. There's no requirement that they have more knowledge than somebody else. It's just a willingness to serve. And so that's why cities do it under consent. That's why you really are not turning anyone away, because you don't have a reason to say no to someone. You can say no if you have a list of 10 people and you have only five that you can pick. And so you choose the 5 that you think would fit the bill and you go with it. That is the reason it was done that way. It's just historically the way I've seen it done in my past, in my profession. I know Eric's seen it done that way. So that is the difference. City council, obviously, take applications. You can go through a whole, ask them questions, have them stand up, do the whole thing. That's the way I've seen it done. I think that's the way it is done. I just need to know, if we start taking them now, I think you can almost clear this up in the next 3 minutes, is just say, how long do you want those applications taken for? If your time frame is after the election, that means you're gonna take applications for June, July, August, September, October. And so I've got a pile of applications sitting there. I mean, we can do that, but then do you want to appoint before the election or after? If your intent is not to appoint till after the election, then there's no reason really to take applications until.
It's closer.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
so
I
that.
just don't want to.
So take applications in a time frame that's maybe more consistent with what legal staff is advising us.
I mean, you are you're the decision makers.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I have my own opinions on this whole thing, and nobody cares about that. So, I mean, so you all need to decide what exactly you are comfortable with. And I mean, my thing is, if you take applications, appoint someone, but if you want after the election, then there's no reason to take applications
I got one question.
right now.
When is the mayor's term?
2 years.
2 years,
So we got 2 more years.
right.
And I do think that the attorney is more concerned if you have a vote that's tied, or if something else happens, or, somebody's gone, or cancer or some, and that issue, so. So far.
And I would rather not make any decision tonight without Chris being here. I think he should have input on this also. I mean, I just think that's fair, that the whole council should be in on this decision. Does anybody feel that?
No,
Not
it's
a good
fine, and it's planning to do it tonight anyway.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I mean,
Just a
we,
discussion.
another 2 weeks.
Thank you for the update on the advisory question, though.
Yeah.
That definitely changes part of the scenario. And so that's further thought for consideration, but I guess question that you brought up, Melissa. If we're supposed to have equal number of budget committee members and council members, and we have a 7-member council, and we only had 1 budget committee, how come we only appointed 5 instead of 6?
Because
We already had one on there. Heather was already on. So we had 1 existing. We appointed 5, that makes 6.
That makes 6, but we should have 7 because we have a 7-member council. Even though we have a vacancy at the
Oh,
moment,
it only
doesn't
goes-
matter.
It only goes, so the state only makes it so it's equal number. They don't care, they want of the existing serving, because they never want, the thought is you never want the public to be able to overturn the council. It's the council's final decision, so you don't want to have a budget committee that trumps the council.
So would
So,
we get another?
You have equal, so if you were to all of a sudden appoint, before we're through the budget committee, if like tomorrow you guys decided to appoint someone, at that point, we could open it up and get another, you don't have to. You
Okay,
don't ever
thank-
have to have an equal, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss tonight?
Sure. So, again, kind of some good news. There's been concern, in the community and at this body about the status of the wastewater treatment plant and our community, development block grant funding. We have, just last week, we got a word that our extension has been approved. So, our extension's approved. We're gonna sign the amendment, until August 2025. And that all our plans that we have submitted, and our amendments and our scope has been reviewed and has been given the go-ahead. And so, the project's moving forward, and, CDBG will be paying for a lot of that moving forward, including our rate study. So, some good news,
Yes, absolutely.
and that's all I have.
Okay, any comments from the council tonight? It didn't stay awake on that. No, nothing?
Not-
Okay, if there is nothing else to discuss, I will adjourn the meeting.